President Lee Jae-myung called for closer Korea-Brazil cooperation in critical minerals, aircraft development and K-beauty at a business roundtable in Sao Paulo, as the two sides signed 7 corporate MOUs before he heads to Chile on the next leg of his South America tour. SK Hynix reported record second-quarter earnings with strong AI demand lifting first-half revenue above 100 trillion won for the first time, while forecasting further growth as it expands next-generation chip production. An intense heat wave is gripping the country, with temperatures in southern regions feeling as hot as 38 degrees Celsius, prompting dozens of heat-related illnesses every day this week. Hello and thanks for joining us on Arirang News. Over in Sao Paulo, President Lee Jae-myung has met business leaders from South Korea and Brazil. He suggested business cooperation in the areas of civil craft development, critical minerals and K-beauty. Our Blue House correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports from Sao Paulo.
Creating synergy in times of a fast-changing global order. That was President Lee Jae-myung at the Korea-Brazil Business Roundtable in Sao Paulo on Tuesday, noting the need to combine Brazil's critical minerals and clean energy with South Korea's advanced technology.
글로벌 불확실성이 높아질수록 서로의 강점을 활용해서 시너지를 낼 수 있는 파트너를 만나는 것이 그 어느 때보다도 중요합니다.
He said the two countries will seek more projects to work together, building upon their strategic partnership.
차세대 민항기 공동 개발을 포함해서 핵심 광물 분야의 공급망 협력, 또 선풍적 인기를 끌고 있는 K-뷰티까지 이 3가지 분야에서 큰 성과를 만들 수 있을 것으로 기대합니다.
Calls for expanded cooperation were echoed by Brazil's Vice President Geraldo Alckmin.
We must not merely focus on increasing the trade volume. It's important to create more added value, strengthen the production chain, and make investment together.
Joining the meeting were dozens of business leaders from the two countries, including the chairman of the Federation of Korean Industries, Ryu Jin, Hyundai Motor Group chairman Chung Ui-sun, and the head of Apex Brazil, Vladimir Müller, who is in charge of promoting trade and investment. 7 corporate MOUs were signed, including those on aerospace, digital healthcare, and critical minerals.
President Lee said that business cooperation would not be easy if governments do not resolve issues related to tariffs and regulations. He designated me for communication with Vice President Alckmin, solely dedicated to coordinating these issues.
President Lee once again noted the need for the Korea-Mercosur trade agreement, having agreed on Monday with his Brazilian counterpart Lula da Silva to speed up resuming negotiations. Later in the day, Lee visited a metal workers' union office in Sao Paulo, where Lula used to work as union president decades ago after working as a metal worker in his early career. After wrapping up his state visit to Brazil, President Lee will head to Chile for a 2-day official visit to meet his Chilean counterpart, Jose Antonio Cost. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News, Sao Paulo.
Korea's chip giant SK Hynix posted its record preliminary second-quarter earnings on Wednesday. Driven by strong global demand for AI memory chips, the chipmaker continues to smash its own financial records. Park Jun-an covers the numbers in detail.
Korean semiconductor titan SK Hynix has once again rewritten its own history. According to preliminary figures, the company's second-quarter revenue reached around 79.3 trillion won, or roughly $54.5 billion. This extends its record-breaking earnings streak to 5 consecutive quarters. Operating profit reached 60.54 trillion won. What is even more remarkable is the operating margin, which pushed past the historic 72% mark set in the first quarter to reach 76.3% in the second. The profit growth continues to be fueled by explosive global demand for AI-related memory chips, especially next-generation high-bandwidth memory, or HBM, supplied to global big tech companies. With supply remaining tight, long-term supply contracts for both premium DRAM and NAND flash have allowed the company to maintain strong pricing power. Despite the company's undisputed record earnings, its stock price, along with those of many global memory chip makers, has fallen by nearly 50% from its June high, when it nearly reached 3 million won per share. This is because market watchers have started to question whether the company's growth momentum may begin to face limits going forward. While the company said it will double its memory production capacity by 2030, the base effect from quarters of explosive growth, combined with potential macroeconomic headwinds, could cap further gains in the second half of the year. 박준환, Arirang News.
The intense heat is showing no signs of letting up. People are enduring scorching days and sleepless tropical nights. And for that, our Park Tae-ryung is live in Central Seoul. Hi Tae-ryung, so tell us where you are and what conditions are like over there.
Hi Hae-ryun, I'm standing here in front of Gwanghwamun Square for about 40 minutes. And honestly, as you can see, I'm drenched in sweat and blushing. The temperature today is gonna reach 33 degrees Celsius with feels like temperature even hotter. As of 6 a.m. Wednesday, heatwave alerts were in effect across most of the country. Heatwave warnings covered large parts of the nation, while advisories remained in place in several other areas. A small number of locations were under the highest level heatwave emergency warning. People are struggling to cope with the relentless heat. Here's what they had to say.
I think today is the hottest it's been lately. I can't go anywhere without a parasol. I've only been walking for a minute or two since getting off the bus, but I'm already sweating. It's really hot.
It is very hot. We're from Florida, and this heat is still more intense than Florida. We are just constantly sweating and having to drink water. It's very hot.
So as we just saw, tourists must be pretty taken aback by this Korean heat wave too, and the situation appears to be very serious nationwide. What can you tell us about the number of heat-related illnesses?
Yes, Hae-ryun, since mid-May, at least 9 people have died, and nearly 1,500 cases of heat-related illness have been reported nationwide. According to the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency, the weekly figure had remained at around 100 or below for nearly 2 months. But in the week of July 10th to July 16th, the number jumped from 75 to 452, which is an increase of just over 500%. It fell to 225 the following week, but another 287 cases were reported in just 4 days between July 24th and 27th. The most severe conditions have been concentrated in the southern regions. In Gyeongsangnam-do province, a heatwave emergency warning was issued as the temperature was forecast to feel as hot as 38 degrees Celsius or higher, which are levels considered potentially life-threatening. The government urged people to immediately suspend or postpone all non-essential outdoor activities and work. It also advised them to move to shaded or air-conditioned areas, drink plenty of water, and take frequent breaks. That's all I have for now. Back to you, Hae-ryun.
All right, Tae-ryung, thank you for the report. That was our Park Tae-ryung at Gwanghwamun Square in Central Seoul. Korea saw another increase in births in May, with the number of newborns up 13.6% from a year earlier. The Ministry of Data and Statistics said Wednesday that 23,160 babies were born during the month. This marks the 23rd straight month of annual growth. For the first 5 months of the year, births surpassed 120,000, up 15.2% from a year earlier. The total fertility rate stands at 0.85, up 0.1 on year. Number of marriages fell 6.4% on year, marking its first decline in 3 months. At least 13 people have been killed after a powerful earthquake struck Japan's Kumamoto prefecture, causing widespread damage and forcing hundreds of thousands to evacuate. Rescue teams are searching for survivors, including dozens missing after a shopping mall partially collapsed, as strong aftershocks continue. Our Chung Hye-rim has more.
At least 13 people have been confirmed dead after a powerful earthquake struck Japan's southern Kumamoto prefecture on Tuesday. According to Japan's public broadcaster NHK, Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi announced the death toll as authorities continue to assess the full extent of the damage. The quake triggered widespread destruction and a major rescue operation, leaving people injured and causing fires, power outages, and significant damage to roads, bridges, and buildings. Takaichi urged residents to protect themselves and evacuate to safe locations as strong aftershocks continue. Around 300,000 people have been told to evacuate, while hundreds of self-defense force personnel have been deployed. One of the hardest hit sites is the prefecture's largest shopping mall, where an explosion occurred after the quake. Footage from the scene showed that part of the mall had collapsed, exposing steel beams and scattering debris across the parking lot as firefighters and rescue crews searched for survivors. The earthquake also caused widespread power outages and ruptured roads throughout Kumamoto, a region that was devastated by another major earthquake a decade ago. The tremor was felt beyond Japan, reaching parts of South Korea. Authorities there received more than 760 reports from across the country, including over 170 calls from the southeastern port city of Busan, where some residents evacuated after feeling buildings sway. Shaking was also reported in Incheon and the central city of Daejeon, although no damage has been reported in South Korea. For many residents in Kumamoto, the powerful shaking revived painful memories of the devastating 2016 earthquake, with survivors saying the latest tremor was among the strongest they had experienced since that disaster. 정혜림, Arirang News.
U.S. President Donald Trump has issued a message marking National Korean War Veterans Armistice Day, an observance he established by proclamation back in 2017. On the 73rd anniversary of the armistice, Trump reaffirmed the Seoul-Washington alliance while warning of a resurgence of communism in the West ahead of the November midterms. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump has reaffirmed the steadfast alliance between Seoul and Washington, describing it as, quote, a pillar of peace and stability across the Indo-Pacific. In a message marking the 73rd anniversary of the Korean War armistice on July 27th, the U.S. leader honored the courage of American forces who fought to defend South Korea, noting the staggering cost of over 135,000 U.S. casualties. He emphasized that the two nations remain, quote, united in a steadfast alliance, tested by shared sacrifice and bound by an abiding love of freedom. President Trump also used the occasion to deliver a stern warning against the resurgence of communist ambitions, stating, quote, the same communist ambition that once sought to conquer the Korean peninsula is trying to rear its ugly head once more, this time in the West. His remarks on communism spreading in the West align with his strategy for the upcoming November midterm elections. The president has intensified his rhetoric against the ideology, recently targeting the Democratic Party over what he says is its growing Democratic Socialist faction. Notably absent from this year's message were specific references to North Korea. Last year's statement highlighted his administration's maximum pressure campaign aimed at securing denuclearization, the release of American hostages, and the repatriation of U.S. military remains. Also omitted this year was any mention of his historic 2019 Panmunjom meeting, where he became the first sitting U.S. president to cross the demilitarized zone into North Korean territory. President Trump first established National Korean War Veterans Armistice Day in 2017 during his first term, issuing annual proclamations to mark the occasion through 2020. He closed this year's statement by paying tribute to the fallen and recalling the inscription at the Korean War Veterans Memorial that says, "Freedom is not free." Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The U.S. military and Saudi Arabia's armed forces have conducted precision strikes against Iran-aligned militant groups in Iraq. According to a statement from U.S. Central Command, the operation was carried out in response to attacks on U.S. forces and Saudi energy infrastructure, allegedly directed by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. CENTCOM said U.S. and Saudi fighter aircraft struck multiple logistics and weapons sites in eastern Iraq after more than 30 aerial drone attacks over the past 72 hours. The command warns that Iran and its proxy groups must halt such attacks to avoid further U.S. military action. US President Donald Trump hosted back-to-back White House meetings with Volodymyr Zelenskyy and Benjamin Netanyahu on Tuesday, discussing ongoing wars. Our Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
President Trump held back-to-back meetings on Tuesday with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. At the White House, Trump first met with Zelenskyy behind closed doors. Following the meeting, Zelenskyy said on Telegram that he had a good meeting with Trump in the Oval Office and that they talked about licenses to produce Patriot interceptors and diplomatic efforts to end the war. Earlier this month, Trump agreed to allow Ukraine to produce Patriot air defense interceptors, a crucial component of the country's defense against Russian aerial attacks. Following talks with Zelenskyy, Trump met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, also behind closed doors. Marking their first face-to-face meeting since the outbreak of the Iran war, Netanyahu has reportedly been eager to secure continued U.S. support and sustain pressure on Iran with a general election scheduled for late October. In a video message recorded afterward, Netanyahu called the meeting excellent.
I just finished an excellent meeting with President Trump. A conversation with full partnership, mutual support, understanding of the common goal to ensure that Iran does not have nuclear weapons, and other goals as well.
Trump had previously criticized Netanyahu for appearing to publicly discuss Iran's Pickaxe Mountain nuclear site, but the issue did not come up during the talks, according to the director of Israel's National Public Diplomacy Directorate, who accompanied Netanyahu on his visit to the U.S. Meanwhile, Netanyahu and Zelenskyy met face-to-face in Washington for the first time in nearly 3 years, after each holding separate meetings with Trump. Marking the first time in-person meeting since September 2023, the two greeted each other and held a brief conversation ahead of a memorial service for Senator Lindsey Graham. The two had explored the possibility of holding an official meeting in Washington that day, but the talks ultimately did not take place. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
This is the world now. Uganda has officially declared itself free of Ebola, even as the outbreak rages in the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo. Uganda's health ministry made the announcement Tuesday after going 42 days without a new case, which is the waiting period set by the World Health Organization. The outbreak began in May when Congolese patients crossed the border seeking care. In total, 20 people were infected and 2 died, both from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Congo's health ministry says confirmed cases have topped 3,200, with more than 1,400 deaths in just 10 weeks, making this the fastest Ebola outbreak on record. In the U.S., the Federal Communications Commission announced on Tuesday that it's banning imports of new Chinese-made humanoid and 4-legged robots, along with Chinese power inverters. Officials say the devices could let China spy on American infrastructure or disrupt it during a crisis. The ban targets future models only, not robots already sold in the U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said Chinese AI firms could also face sanctions for stealing U.S. intellectual property. Keiko Fujimori was sworn in as Peru's president on Tuesday after narrowly winning June's runoff by fewer than 50,000 votes. The 51-year-old daughter of former President Alberto Fujimori becomes Peru's first elected female leader and the 10th president in a decade where no leader in the country completed a full 5-year term. In her first address, she called for reconciliation and pledged to fight crime, cut government spending, and raise the minimum wage by 15%. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
Heatwave heatwave alerts have been expanded and upgraded once again. And Seoul has now experienced tropical nights for 7 straight days, while Jeju has had more than 3 weeks of tropical nights, setting another record. And imagine how unbearably hot it must feel in the southeast of the country, with highs hovering in the upper 30s in the afternoon, so please take well care. In fact, a powerful combination of a double high-pressure system is firmly in place, with the North Pacific high near the surface and the Tibetan high overhead. The Korean peninsula is trapped in this heat, pushing temperatures higher day after day. And the heat shows no sign of easing up for the time being under sunny skies, with humidity making it feel even hotter. Lastly, checking on today's highs, Seoul, Daejeon, Gwangju will be getting up to 34 degrees. Daegu, Gyeongju will be topping out at 37 degrees. Please stay safe in this extreme heat.
That's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time, so stay tuned.